Did you know that there is such a thing as processing on positive experiences and positive emotions? Okay, so I'm going to speak to people who have worked with me before on release, and also those of you who are yet to join me on something like release, where you learn how to process your emotions, empty out your emotional cup, and decipher the message behind your experience. Because I have been running release since early 2021. I'm now in the midst of the 11th round of live support. And it's been so interesting to see people come back and reinvest in themselves and reset release and the different layers that they move through. So sometimes people are just working on people releases or maybe a theme around past intimate relationships so that they stop repeating unhealthy or toxic relationships. Other times there are people who are processing on body parts that aren't functioning or organs that they've had removed. Other times they're working on a variation like the younger version of themselves when they weren't too happy with their younger self and how they showed up in their life. Okay. So every time I always mention, and since day dot, since I started release, there has been a variation called positive releases. And there are people who have been with me for years or they've set many rounds of release. And then they say, Jen, is this something new? I've never heard of a positive release. And this just goes to show that sometimes we have tunnel vision. Sometimes we only have availability and capacity to hear what we are ready to hear. And so I say the release course platform just grows as you do. There are so many variations for you to dive into. There is also a point where it's not so much about emotional processing, okay? But we'll save that to later because that's usually way down the track for a lot of people. And so I do also give a lot of space, prioritization towards negative releases. And that's because I think human nature is that a lot of people remember the stuff that they didn't like. They remember the bad experiences. They remember the emotions that they wanted to feel, but they didn't feel. And they think that that is what's going to move them forwards by digging into all the negative stuff, processing that and helping them move forwards. And yes, that is true. But hopefully, as you listen to more and more of these episodes, I really like to interact with someone as an individual and meet them with what they're ready for because there are so many variations of how you can release. And actually, if you haven't come across my release process, I have actually shared the basic version where you can release on a person who triggers you in life. I have shared that in two places that you can access. The first is my book, Healing Beyond the Diagnosis. You can get the paperback and ebook off your local Amazon and it arrives pretty quickly. You can get the audiobook privately from me. And the other place is the Gateway Experience, where there's a video teaching of the basic release process on releasing on a person that triggers you in life. This is the easiest way to teach someone the foundation so that they can then go into the variations of releasing on organs and body parts not functioning or the younger version of themselves, or there's a few other variations as well. Okay. So that is where you can access the basic version, the basic foundation. It doesn't mean because it's basic that it is not useful. It so is. It's where I really recommend everyone starts. But here I want to talk about the power of positive releases versus the negative ones. Okay. So sometimes it is easier for someone to start off with negative space releases. But what I have also picked up is that sometimes people come in so fixated, or they have this expectation, or they have this knowing that I need to move through these specific series of events, or I need to move through memories and interactions with this specific person. And they try and go in too big and too deep, and the release becomes too much. Okay. So I really teach to people that it's got to be just one memory, one interaction, one event, one comment, like just one thing that you're releasing on. When you keep it simple, it is so much safer and so much easier for your body. And so many people just underestimate how powerful simple can be, and likewise how powerful positive can be. And after So someone who's just starting off release, if I feel like the negative stuff, they're just not getting it, and I can see it because they're bypassing steps in the process, then I'll say, hey, it would be really great if you just did a positive release. Okay. Can you find something positive to release on anyone in your life? Just find something recent. Make it really easy on yourself. Sometimes it is on a past distant memory of someone and a positive experience. And it amazes me and it amazes them just how much emotion is present when they do a positive release. Okay, I've got another example coming up into my head. So, birth. I think that positive birth experiences, there can be a lot of shame around sharing positive birth experiences. I had a positive birth experience. I've worked with people who have had birth trauma as well. So we just have different experiences and we can work with them through emotional processing as well. We can talk about them in a healthy way. But there are so many people that feel ashamed of having a positive birth experience when so many people around them are not having a great experience. And so they kept it a secret or they only shared it with a couple of people, this celebration, this milestone, the success of a positive birth experience. And so this is something that people can go back and release on. There's quite a few steps to doing something around birth, but this is an experience that someone can release on, and they're like, oh my gosh, I never felt what it felt like to celebrate this experience in my life. Okay. So sometimes if negative space experiences are too much for you to process, you're having difficulty with with even the basic process, then maybe it's not where you need to start. Okay, everyone has different starting points with releases. Sometimes they start with the variations, even though I say that it's good to have the basic foundation. I really love to meet people with where they're at. You know, a lot of people that I work with have done a significant amount of emotional work. But if something is not working, it can feel really defeating to just constantly receive feedback, critical feedback that is there to help you, especially when you've got a full emotional cup. Sometimes we just take personal offense. And so I don't want to keep on digging and having someone try something that isn't easy. I want to give them an easy and a quick hit. And often it's in the most mundane, basic release. And so I will say, okay, let's go to positive. Then what I also notice is that, and this might be you, even if you haven't done my work before, is that when you're in emotional work, sometimes just constantly talking about the past or processing on the past, it can leave the body a little bit flat. And so when I'm in release and I'm giving people the 6 weeks live support that happens intermittently throughout the year, we kind of set an intention of 3 releases per week. That's usually enough to be able to get a message. That's enough to be able to get the rhythm, the feedback, to actually nail the process in its most succinct, concise, efficient way possible. Like, I don't want people buried in their emotions for 20 minutes, half an hour. That's sometimes where people start. This process can be done within like 1 to 3 minutes, and people are like, "What? I don't get it." If you keep it simple, it can be done that quickly. So sometimes what happens if you are doing regular emotional processing, and I don't recommend that you do 3 a week forever and a day, right? This is just for a 6 week block, is that sometimes I can pick up when it is just becoming too much on the body. And I'll say, you need to do a positive release. Just find anything, something, or something that we've been working on. Say if they're releasing on body parts not functioning very well because it's diseased or they've got a condition, I'll say, okay, now you're focusing a lot on what's not working well, but there's a whole bunch of other areas in your body that might be working well. So we can apply that variation and we can do a positive release on the parts that you're not seeing that are functioning well. Or, you know, going back to the basics is actually releasing on a positive experience interaction with someone, a stranger or someone from your past, and allow yourself to feel, what does it feel like to express that gratitude, express that appreciation, still using the process. So sometimes I recommend a positive release to pull someone out of the negativity, because sometimes processing your emotions can get a lot. Okay. So if you've been with me before, go and check out the Release Course platform because you've got lifetime access to it, and go and check out the positive release. It's basically using the same process, and you've got all these printable cheat sheets which have been updated as well. And you just apply a more positive spin to it rather than negative. Now, we don't try and make something positive that wasn't positive. We actually release, process, experience actual memories, events, interactions, comments that were positive. All right. We're not trying to override the negative. But I just suggest give this a go. And if you have access to my book, Healing Beyond the Diagnosis, or you're in the Gateway experience, then try a positive release on a person in your life and just see what comes up. Now, if you are struggling with this, if you are not noticing anything, then it may mean that we've got to find another release that's more relevant for you. Or this is where I really recommend that you come and join me on my signature course Release, where I do offer an element of live support at varied times throughout the year so that I can have my eyes on your releases. I can look at your history and tell you, what have you got to release on? I can guide you because I know that our human can just get in the way and it makes something so simple more complex than it needs to be. Okay, so this is where I want to remind you that releasing, processing on positive experiences is a great thing to do. And it really plays into when you are progressing on your emotional personal development pathway, speaking your truest nature and authentic version of yourself, that it is a great thing to have places, groups to be able to celebrate your successes and milestones where you will be cheered on, rather than have the guilt come up, the tall poppy syndrome, where the shame spiral is kind of projected onto you. Okay, we have all of these experiences to move through. And so there can just be such benefit in processing in these positive experiences to gear you up for all of the cool stuff you're going to bring into your life that you can celebrate, that you can share and show people what is possible. And if you find that you're doing emotional work, or even if you've like touched on my emotional work, it's not all about the negative, because sometimes being right into all the negative processing, it can put you in not such a great mind space. And so every now and then you might need to drop back in and do a positive release. Okay, so I hope that helps you, helps remind you that it's not all just like pain and pity parties. There's no pity parties in my world. It's not just all negative, because I think a lot of people can look at my work and go, oh my gosh, don't you want to just focus on the positives? Don't you just want to like focus on what you want to create, not delve into your past? There is such value in delving into your past. And I can tell you now that your past is not all negative, that there is stuff for you to celebrate and for you to give yourself the gift of experiencing positive emotions and feeling them: joy, happiness, excitement, elation, pleasure, just all of those states. This is about the full spectrum of your emotions, experiencing them and feeling them. Thanks for joining me for this episode. If you have enjoyed listening to it, if you've gotten something from it, then I would love for you to get in touch with me. Let me know what landed. And for the release process, I will pop the link in the show notes for my book, Healing Beyond the Diagnosis, and the Gateway Experience. And if you feel drawn to it, then you know the next step to take.